Hello everyone and welcome to today's video. Today I'm going over a new poll that was released in the state of Florida, which looks at a hypothetical governor matchup of Byron Donalds and Casey DeSantis. Now, if you're unfamiliar with the story here, Byron Donalds, a U.S. representative from the state of Florida, was given the endorsement in the 2026 Florida's governor's race by President Donald Trump. He endorsed Byron Donalds, saying that if Donalds were to run, Trump would fully endorse him, and then Byron Donalds announced a few days later he was running. But current governor of the state of Florida, Ron Desantis, has been propping up his wife, Casey DeSantis, to possibly run for the governor's race. So that's a little bit of the background. In a new poll that was released around the end of February, voters who know the president support Donalds prefer him over Casey DeSantis nearly 2-1, the pollsters found. U.S. Representative Byron Donalds leads two other Republicans who are likely to run for governor, as new internal polling shows that more voters learn he's Donald Trump's preferred candidate, the better his shot at winning becomes. Fort Lauderdale-based survey, research, and strategic consulting firm Fabrizio Lee and Associates, which Donalds hired for his campaign, polled 600 likely Republican primary voters in Florida from February 26th through 27th, and had about a 5% margin of error. The pollsters found that 34% of respondents preferred Donald as Florida's next governor, while 30% like First Lady Casey DeSantis for the job. Okay, so you may be thinking, well, a 5-point margin of error, Donald's only leads here 34-30, that's a 4-point gap. That's not that big, that's within the margin of error. Statistically, it's a tie, so what's the big deal? Well, let's read on. 3% said they plan to vote for Agriculture Commissioner Wilton Simpson, who is also rumored to be gearing up for a run. The remainder were undecided. Doing quick math here, 34 plus 30, that's 64%, plus another 3, 67%. That leaves about a third of the vote, 33% in the Republican primary, undecided right now. Donald's lead in the race is notable considering DeSantis has much higher name recognition than he does. 86% of respondents said they knew who DeSantis is, compared to 65% who said the same about Donalds, despite the fact that Donalds does have a few-point lead here. But when the pollsters pry a little more and inform voters that Trump had endorsed Donalds for governor, Donalds' lead over DeSantis grows up to 22 points, 45% to 23%. So that means DeSantis loses about 7% of her support from before at 30%, and Donalds' 34 goes up to 45, a nearly 2-1 edge. There's also a lot of room to grow. Currently, less than half of Republican primary voters know that President Trump has made an endorsement in this race, and Donald hasn't yet advertised the president's support. Naturally, Casey DeSantis has the full backing of her husband, Governor Ron DeSantis, but it's not nearly as impactful as the president's, the poll found. When respondents were told that Ron DeSantis endorsed Casey DeSantis without first hearing about Trump's endorsement of Donalds, the First Lady's standing in the race jumped to 35%, 2 points more than Donalds. So if they were done in a vacuum without people knowing, then Casey DeSantis would be above of Donalds, but Trump is ahead when it comes to those two matched up together. However, when voters know of both endorsements, 38% of respondents said they preferred Donalds compared to 28% who said they were siding with DeSantis. 5% said they would instead cast ballots for Simpson, a 2-point bump, while 29% continued to remain undecided. And then this is a quote from Tony Fabrizio, the pollster, who obviously is aligned with the Donalds campaign and President Trump. Much like the DeSantis' fool's errand in 2024 against President Trump, where he got crushed, this data shows that the DeSantis would suffer a similar fate in Florida if Casey should run for governor, Fabrizio Lee and Associates partner Tony Fabrizio said in a statement. The only real questions are, will they betray President Trump again, and how many Tallahassee fools will fall them off the cliff a second time to do so? Obviously, this is a Trump-aligned pollster, and they have animosity towards DeSantis, obviously, but still, the poll numbers don't lie in this poll. Trump is among several Florida Republicans who have supported Donald's campaign since he made his candidacy official late last month. Others backing him include State Senators Randy Fine, Joe Gruters, State Reps Yvette Bonarich, Bernie Jaquez, Toby Overdorf, and Juan Porras, Boca Raton Mayor Scott Singer, and former Florida GOP Chair Christian Ziegler. Democrats rumored or confirmed to be mulling a run include Senate Democrat leader Jason Pizzo, Miami Garden Senator Chevron Jones, Jacksonville Rep Angie Nixon, Miami-Dade Mayor Daniela Levine Cava, and former U.S. Rep. Gwen Graham. The 2026 primary election is on August 18th. The general election is November 3rd. So we certainly have a long ways to go on this one. And this article is written by Jesse Schechner, who has covered South Florida with focus on Miami-Dade since 2012. So those are the numbers in the poll. Now we look at the 2026 governor's race in the primary. And obviously, Donald's versus Casey DeSantis is the headline here. There are some other potential candidates like Matt Gaetz, like Ashton Hayward, like Jeanette Nunez, like Wilton Simpson and Frances Suarez. But the main story here is Donald versus DeSantis. These two are going to be the high top vote getters if they do decide to both run for this race. They're the two to watch right now. As the article mentioned, Donald Trump has already endorsed Byron Donalds. That's the biggest endorsement you can get in the Republican primary. Donalds has it. Byron Donalds also has Trump Jr., Charlie Kirk, and Club for Growth, a very prominent Republican PAC as well. Looking at other Republican primary polling, this is the poll we just went over. Fabrizio Lee and Associates, 34-30%. Prior to the endorsement in January, Donalds was leading the primary field, though DeSantis was not polled. A Florida Atlantic University poll back in June of last year, obviously before Donalds had announced his intentions to run for this race, DeSantis had a very big lead over Donalds, 43% to 19%. So it is interesting that in the pro-Donalds poll, DeSantis still has 30%, which to me says no matter what, DeSantis would start out as a very formidable candidate and opponent to Byron Donalds, as she had 43% in the Florida Atlantic University poll back in June. And in this poll that is pro-Donalds, she starts off with 30%. Though, as I mentioned, the underlying numbers in the poll certainly express some concern in regards to once voters find out about Trump's endorsement, DeSantis' numbers go down. But she does start out in a very formidable position against Byron Donalds. How this all plays out, it depends, first of all, if Casey DeSantis is running. We already know Byron Donalds is going to run. The real question here is, will Casey DeSantis run? If she does run, she'll get the backing, obviously, of Governor Ron Desantis and a lot of his close advisors and supporters in the state of Florida. I would expect the Attorney General, James Upmeyer, who was the Lieutenant Governor I believe the Attorney Governor for DeSantis will also most likely jump in and endorse DeSantis as well. It will be a very close primary, a hotly contested one, a very expensive one that I think will be very, very close and come down to the wire. As for what this means for the general election of the 2026 Florida governor's race, the Democrats, if you are a Democrat, honestly, in this situation, I'm sorry. I don't think the Democrats have much of a chance at all in Florida going forward, especially not in 2026. There are some potential candidates like Minority Leader, the Florida House of Representatives, Fentrice Driscoll, Chevron Jones, Jason Pizzo. But when you look at the rankings, Cook Political Report has it solid Republican. Inside Elections has it solid Republican. We just saw the presidential race in Florida. Republicans, Donald Trump won by 13 points, 56-43. I'll get the exact numbers for you as well by percentages. A 13.1% win for Trump over Harris. 13.1%. The last time there was a governor's race was in 2022. Ron DeSantis won re-election by 19.4%. If you don't want to stop there, we can look at the Senate race. In 2024, Rick Scott won by 12.8%, only down 0.3% from what President Trump got. And if you want to look in 2022, Marco Rubio won by 16.4%. Especially in the most recent midterm election, it seems like Florida is officially a solid, safe Republican state, and I expect the 2026 governor election to be very similar. But this all comes down to the Republican primary. Do Donalds and DeSantis run against each other? Because I think right now, truthfully, even with President Trump's endorsement, Donalds and DeSantis is going to be a very, very competitive primary that I would say starts out as probably too close to call. Because DeSantis does have the name ID right now, despite the fact that Trump has endorsed Donalds. That will probably change over time. But it does set up a very competitive primary and one that I think will truly come down to the wire. But I'm interested to hear what you have to think. Leave a comment below telling me your thoughts about this. Who would you support if it was Byron Donalds versus Casey DeSantis? Who would you throw your hat in the ring and support? I'm very interested to hear what you have to say. Also, remember to give the video a like and remember to click subscribe so you get notified when I post new videos, which I post at least one new video every single day, so you're not going to want to miss those. All right, that'll do it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in a future video.